So, it's always interesting to conclude when you have not attended the whole discussion. But I try to do my best. So, dear friends, first, I think your discussions certainly were of high importance because I think the idea of just transition is becoming even more important than it was at the beginning when the whole Green Deal was launched. And we see that we have really to emphasize this dimension of the Green Deal, of this transition. Because you know better than I that this is a transition which goes deep into our society, which it affects many regions in Europe, which affects many sectors in our economy, and at the end affects nearly all citizens. So I am very happy that this forum, which meets I think twice a year, and which brings the experiences and the ideas on this transition process from the different regions, from the different member states, to be discussed. I think this is a very valuable exercise, and I think we have really to build on it because I must say the discussion which we have now around the Green Deal, the transition, is not just a positive one, unfortunately. It has become a part of a very special political debate where the Green Deal sometimes is the scapegoat of all kinds of problems. We have seen it with the farmers, but it's also in other areas where finally the Green Deal is presented as a problem and not as an opportunity, as really a big opportunity to change for the better our society, but also our economy. So I think it is extremely important to have these exchanges, to promote the forum, and to promote also the awareness of the real challenge and the real result we are all striving for of the transition. From the beginning, by the way, it was clear that transition had to be just. This is when we are talking about the transition, we always should add this word of just. Now, what does just mean? I remember when we started to discuss the Green Deal, but we started also to discuss social Europe, we adopted a communication which was called a Communication on a Strong Social Europe for a Just Transition. So for us, it's clear that just transition and social Europe are very much closed. We had yesterday and the day before yesterday interesting discussions in La Hulpe, initiated by the Belgian presidency on the next steps we have to do in promoting and strengthening the social dimension in Europe. And it's clear we cannot think social Europe independently from all our duties and all our efforts we are doing in the context of transforming our economy in the sense of decarbonization. I think this is a fundamental idea, and that's why I want to thank you for the forum. I want to thank you for your contribution and your debate, and I hope also that when you go back to your regions, to your member states, that these are the essential messages which have to be conveyed to, especially in this period where finally we are debating Europe, we are debating European policies in a very special context, that these are the messages which can be conveyed. Now, also the regional and territorial aspect are essential. I think this is again, there's another aspect also my colleague Elisa Ferreira is very much involved with. It's just transition, it's social, and it is cohesion. We cannot think the just transition without having in mind the cohesion policy. The cohesion policy might and should be also a strong promoter of the just transition, because it's, by the way, about territories, it's about communities, it's about helping regions to make the changes and the transformation a big success. So I'm still very much obsessed even in some way by the experiences we had in the 70s when there was also a transition, if I may call it like that. It was globalization, it was an industrial transition, it was affecting many regions in Europe, including this country, Belgium, but not only. All at that time, what we call the old industries were affected. It was already at that time about coal. And finally, it was quite difficult to make this, at that time, the transition a real and success, and especially a success in time. Because it's not about the next 20, 30 years where we can say, well, in 30 years, these are flourishing regions, as a German chancellor said at one moment about the enlargement, about the enlargement of Germany. So this is something people ask for now. It's now that we have to really put this just transition to implement this just transition. And this is of crucial importance, firstly, because it's clear that the transition must become a reality. People have to feel it, have to see it, have to see that things are moving. And I must say that time is an important factor, because we have objectives which are very close. When we think about 55 in 2030, when we think about 90 in 40, and we think about 0 in 50. These are very short time frameworks, and that shows that the reality to transform transition into a reality is very important in that sense that we have to move. But at the same time, we know also that the clock is ticking what climate change is concerned. It's not something far, it's something which is very present. So climate change is not something which will happen. Climate change is something which is happening now. And that's why also we are under pressure of time. In Europe, obviously not just in Europe, also globally. By the way, this is also a challenge. We have to see that we are not the only ones who are doing something on transition. We see it differently, and that's why we should also look how they are doing it, not to copy them, but at least to get some lessons from them, what the US is doing, but also what others, including China, which also has a climate objective 10 years later than us, but they are talking about this climate civilization, and or ecological civilization. So this is, we are not just here in Europe to look at European things, we have to look also at, in a much broader context. And by the way, climate can only be solved in the global context, but Europe has to contribute to that, but also because it's a global issue, we also have to avoid that Europe is at the end behind. And this is a real risk in terms of transformation. This is also an issue in terms of finally taking the good opportunities out of transition and of these transformations. So we must turn the transition into good opportunities for our economy, for our people, explaining to our people what is at stake. Everybody wants to breathe good air. Everybody wants to have, nobody wants to have floods and forest fires. So I think this is something very concrete we have to use. And also, obviously, we want to guarantee the regions, especially when we are talking about the transition facility, we think first about coal, but it's not just about coal, but we have also in mind that these regions have to be supported, and we have really to enhance transformation with all the aspects of this terrible word of transformation this implies. So as you know better than I, the Just Transition Fund has been created to support investments to those who are most impacted by the consequences of this transition process. It comes in support to territories and people which require most help in transitioning towards climate neutrality. And this covers nearly 100 territories in all EU member states. We have already reached some milestones in its implementation. We identified the territories most affected by climate transition, where the support should be targeted. We triggered the discussion on the transformation of carbon-intensive industries, and with the establishment of the Just Transition mechanism, we accelerated the phasing out of coal in many member states. We did this in close partnership with all stakeholders, national, regional, and local, and, well, this is really essential to imply stakeholders. And I listened to one of the questions about social dialogue, and I must say, this is essential in the broad sense, but also with social partners. This is something we cannot talk about just transition, we cannot talk about the smooth transformation if we do not imply social partners. And when I say social partners, I mean unions, but I mean also employers. I mean also the industries. So if we are planning how this transition has to be implemented, they are actors. They are not just there, sitting there and looking. No, they are the major actors. And we have absolutely, I would say, better involve them. So let me also give you some concrete examples of our fruitful collaboration. Thanks to the GTF, Spain is on track to phase out coal for energy production ahead of its initial planning of 2030. For example, the GTF currently finances a hub for technological innovation in offshore renewable energy and energy storage in La Coruña, the renovation of public buildings to improve their energy performance in León, and promote an innovative project using microalgae to produce renewable fuels in Cadiz. In Bulgaria, the GTF is helping the phasing out of coal-fired power plants and coal mines by providing concrete support for upskilling and reskilling of the workers affected, and by putting up renewable energy installation that will create new employment opportunities for over 15,000 workers in 3 regions. So at all EU level, we established the EU Teens for Green initiative, and this initiative offers young people an opportunity to take ownership and become actors of change while proposing actions to help build a green recovery in their region, and hence contribute to the good governance of our policy. And these projects do exactly what is needed, providing new opportunities for the regions, the local businesses, and workers. And this support comes in addition to Europe's cohesion funding instruments, the European Social Fund Plus that finances investments in people, and the European Regional Development Fund that finances with investments in infrastructures and businesses. And the conference has given us additional takeaways and thoughts going forward. We learned about new ideas from the regions presenting excellent GTF projects and see how GTF financing can be spent in the most effective way. And we could also follow the exchange on how the monitoring of GTF implementation can be done in an efficient way, with some interesting examples from Poland and Greece. Indeed, despite all efforts undertaken already, the challenges are still numerous. We have heard about some cross-sectoral issues and changes to which we need to adapt. For instance, we discussed the challenge of addressing poverty in the just transition context. And most importantly, what are the solutions and best practices in this regard? And here I just mentioned also the Social Climate Fund. So the Social Climate Fund will only be set up in 2026. So we have really to see how we best use the Social Climate Fund. And again, I think this is one challenge for the Union as such and for member states, both together. How we organize, how we coordinate better the different instruments we have. I think this is really a challenge, because we all know that in the coming years, there is an enormous need of investment. There is an enormous need of money, which has to be taken in our hands in order to mitigate and to accelerate and to create this new economy. And this means that we really have to work on our instruments and coordinate and leave our silos and see how we can really have a real comprehensive approach. So I would say this is an advice I give to the next Commission. So really to work on this and use the different instruments in a very coordinated way. Certainly, poverty is a big issue, because we all know that the present situation, especially after the increases of energy prices, has shown how vulnerable a certain number of people are. Especially, they have suffered a lot from price increases. We have the issue of not just poverty, but energy poverty is very concrete. There are millions of people who are affected by energy poverty. So I would say, transforming our energy pattern is an opportunity for them. But there is a way to go until we reach this objective. So we should not lose this poverty issue and this issue of vulnerable categories in our population out of sight, because also the instruments to accelerate the transformation, like ETS systems, they have a distributional effect. And we cannot accept that this, for some people, for some categories, really negative distribution effect is not taken into account. So we really have to deal with that. So about investments in skills of the future, you have also discussed this. This is extremely important. I think this is a must, and it's at the same time a huge opportunity. But we are in this context also under time pressure, because we have to train, skill more people. But we also have to retrain more people, because what does it mean when in a region coal stops to be exploited? Well, that means that we have to retrain the workers. Not just the workers, but also their kids, their children, because they were in the mindset that they would become also coal miners, which is very particular in this, especially in this kind of regions. So we have to anticipate a lot of things in education, in skilling, but also always knowing in which direction do we skill. So I have visited certain regions, precisely with coal, where finally they are thinking how they can transform or use the skills people have into precisely new activities. And I think this is very important also with skills, is to know what are the existing skills, how can we use the existing skills by perhaps improving them, adapting them in the build-up of new activities which can be used in that sense. On the we are in the European Year of Skills, which takes an end soon, but which I consider to have continued for the next at least decade, if it's not more. And it is very important that precisely this idea of eco-innovation is fully integrated into our skills policies. Now, I'm always asked, what are the green jobs? And what are the green skills? Okay, you can say the green skills, farmers, are they green? Well, let's assume. Are gardeners green? Yes, sure. But, by the way, a nice place here. But the fact is that there are a lot of green skills which are not so different from existing skills. Absolutely. But unfortunately, sometimes these skills are lacking. They are lacking because when you are transforming your heating system, Well, you need electricians, you need people who are very much involved in this kind of skills. So they might be, or they have to be reskilled, but they have the basic skills you need also in this transformation into the direction of greening our economy and our different systems. So I think about education and skills, certainly we have to adapt also our educational systems a bit more in this direction, anticipating. We are doing that, by the way, with our agency in Thessaloniki, who are working a lot on this kind of needs, what kind of skills are needed when we are pushing forward the green transition. Sometimes I have the impression they are doing a lot of work, but I'm not sure if always everybody is aware of the work they are doing. So this is also a way how we better communicate them, give them messages, because a lot of people say, oh, this is the end because we do not have. No, we can very rapidly prepare people to this green changes, because finally it's just a difference, a slight difference we have to add, or we have to change in the skills people have. So I think this is something important also in the approach we have to do. So I'm very happy that in the Pact for Skills there are a lot of also companies or stakeholders working on this particular issue and reskilling people in this sense. We have launched a certain number of academies also in the sense of the batteries, although we can always discuss if batteries are finally so green, but that's another issue. And especially also with all the renewable energy. I think this is something which will bring a lot of changes, but also a lot of new jobs and good jobs, because we have to work on our energy pattern, and this is a very transformative issue. So again, I want to stop here. I thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's extremely important to keep the acceptability of this project, which is, yes, here one can say an historic project, which is something probably has not been achieved in such a short time, but we have to make sure that people understand it, or more or less understand it, and that this project remains acceptable. And here you are the best to do this job. Thank you.